workshops and had to study over a course of several years to become a teacher in the Children's Center. So I am accredited with Debunk's method of meditation. But today I'm going to just give you a little bit of an overview about meditation. Some of you may have a little bit of experience with it. It's always nice to learn a bit more. And I'll tell you just a little bit about meditation and me in my life. I meditated for years on and off. I did Qigong, which is a Chinese form, and it's often very common people get on and off the meditation bandwagon throughout their lives. It wasn't until I really studied as a teacher that I began to institute a daily practice. And I can tell you that's when it made the most difference in my life. Probably of all the things that I've done, and since you know I'm belly dancing later, you know I've done so many diverse things in my life. I've been, you know, a belly dancer, a corporate trainer, a meditation teacher. Meditation probably changed my life, you know, most beneficially than any other technique. I'm also, just to give you an idea, I'm a parent. I'm actually a single parent of 2 children ages 5 and 2. I'm having an open house today, selling my house. I had to drop my kids off at dance for 9 a.m. for their practice tomorrow. Come here, teach you how to meditate, go home, clean the cat litter, come back, get my sequins on, and dance at 1. And I'm smiling, okay? Now, if I didn't meditate, I would not be smiling. I'd be stressed out yelling at people before I came on. And that's really, for me, everyone gets different benefits, and we can talk more about that, but for me, being able to, you know, live the last couple of years with a 2-year-old that just started sleeping about a week ago, to be able to get up every day, to have vitality, to have patience, that's really, you know, how it enhanced my life. And I really notice it when I don't meditate. So it's okay, I don't mind the door open, Pat, yeah, until we meditate, it just brings more people in. So that's a little bit of where I'm coming from, just so you know that I sort of had to walk the walk as a meditator. And now I'm going to just tell you what meditation is. And it at first might be a little confusing, but as I talk and give more examples, it gets a bit more clear. Because meditation might seem at first a bit esoteric, but what's important to know is that it's actually a technique. So meditation is not some kind of strange, you know, out there experience. It's a technique, just like any other sort of tool that you can use. In this case, you could probably define it by saying meditation is a technique to bring you to a place of stillness and timelessness. It's a technique that uses focused attention to get you to that place of quiet, out-of-time experience. Now, at first that again probably seems a little out there, you know. But if I ask all of you if you meditated, even though you may say to me that you haven't, I bet you probably experienced the meditative, sort of that meditative state. So we talk about timelessness, stepping outside of time, okay? And you might think, well, that's impossible. Well, I'm going to ask you guys here, has anyone here, let's see, like to jog, like to run, and they lose sense of time? Does anybody like doing needlework or knitting? Perhaps when you're dancing, you know, you lose sense of time. Sometimes just being out in nature, somebody like a fisherman, out in nature, you know, next thing you know, it's 5 hours have gone by. Kayakers, being in nature will often do it. Anything very rhythmic that has sort of that, you know, that's why when you think of swimming, very meditative, and jogging, very meditative. But also, this isn't one of my things, but anyone here like love cooking? And they start cooking, and then all of a sudden they're adding spices, and they don't even think, and they just get into the flow. Those creative juices come, you know, and the next thing you know, they've created something. So has anyone here experienced any of those? Yeah? Anybody have, and other things are different, like being in love, right? Staring into your loved one's eyes. That's why when you're with someone you love, the time just flies. Maybe when you're with the in-laws of the person you love, the time doesn't fly.
Oh, it flies just great, right?
Well said, well said. So we can see that right there, time is subjective. So when people say to me they haven't meditated, they actually have. Anyone have one that I've missed? Anybody have a really interesting thing? Are there any artists or painters or dancers in the room? Or Driving, that is a really good one. Because driving is rhythmic and repetitive. And have you ever been somewhere where you've gone the same route and all of a sudden you're at the route and you don't even remember how you got there? And it's not that you're unsafe, but you were in that rhythm, and so you stepped out of time for a moment. So that experience is pretty much the same experience as meditating. There's different ways to get the meditative state, right? It's just meditation is a technique that you can practice every day, because some people do jog every day, but some people don't always get to paint every day. And sometimes, you know, you only have 15 minutes, right? And to get your paints out and do all that, that's like a 4-hour thing on a Sunday afternoon. Most people have very busy lives. And so meditation is that technique that takes you into that place, and you can do it in about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. I want to share with you a little bit about what happens in your brain when you're actually in the meditative state, just to show you that it is very similar. So when you're meditating, or when you're doing one of those activities, the brain waves actually lower in your brain. And we know this now because we have EEGs, where we can actually measure the brain waves. And most of the time, hopefully right now, because you're all listening to me, you're in an alert state. I don't think anyone is actually in a lower sleeping state, I'm hoping. So when you're in an alert state, you are in the beta. They call them beta brain waves, which is just your everyday. Right now I'm in beta because I'm talking to you and engaging with you. When you get a little bit stressed, you get into higher beta. Sometimes stress can be bad or good though, right? You could even say that I'm perhaps in a higher beta state at the moment because I'm presenting, and that's good. When you get really, really high, it's not so good. And then there's the lower states, which are called theta and delta. And then the lower you go, you get into actually a sleep state. Okay? So those lower states of theta and delta, they're like kind of like the dream state when you're sleeping. And then a little bit higher than that is almost, if you can imagine, somebody like being not really awake or asleep, almost like hypnosis. They're kind of in that state where they can be susceptible to suggestion, that those kind of states we think of. When we meditate, we go into those lower states. That actually happens in our brains. It's a very relaxed state. It's a state where you're in the flow. So whether you're meditating, like sitting like this, or whether you're on the golf course, it's a very good state to be in, because you imagine like an athlete and he's playing baseball, right? If he's in the high beta state, it's actually not the best way to play the game. Instead, if he's in the flow and he's just in that state and he's not thinking about the fans, he's not thinking about the sports agent in the crowd, he's just in that, and then the ball comes and he's one with the ball and it lands in his glove. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so that's actually, just wanted to share with you the science, because it's kind of interesting to know that it's not just sort of this new age thing. It's a very physical thing that happens in your brain and in your body, right? Now, you wouldn't necessarily want to be like that maybe all day. Meditation, I should say, it's not about checking out, right? It's about checking into yourself, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's not, we don't meditate so that we can stay away from the world, okay? And I always like to say that because there's still a bit of a holdover, of the kind of yogis, like, don't bother me, I'm meditating, right? And that's not really the goal. It's to enhance your life in many ways. Okay? So what we're going to talk a little bit now is we're going to talk about maybe why you should meditate. And there's a lot of reasons, but I just maybe would ask anybody here, does anyone ever meditate, or does anybody, yeah? And why do you meditate?
Well, I started back in the 70s with the TM.
Right, yeah.
And, I thought it was effective, but I sort of got out of the habit.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, it's like on and off.
Yeah, on and off. And so, but I find myself just doing it when I want to relax a little bit and calm down.
So for relaxation and calming
Yeah.
down. Yeah, and anyone else, thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share? Or I can share some reasons if you like. So there's a lot of reasons why you might meditate. The biggest reason that most people say is stress. And stress, I think there's actually someone speaking later about stress, so I'll just kind of go over it briefly. Stress and anxiety are a huge problem now in the world because the world is moving faster and faster. It really is on many levels, on an energy level, and with technology and everything that's happening on such a quick level, people are having to adapt very, very quickly. And people's lives are very, very busy, you know, especially if you are working with children. You know, there are some mornings where I think, you know, my meditation is, come on, come on, come on, come on, we gotta go, let's get out the door, right? And they pull many, many people who say that stress and anxiety is a huge problem in their life. There's a couple of reasons why stress is a big problem. One is that stress affects your body in a lot of very negative ways. It causes that permanent sort of alert fight or flight response where your blood pressure spikes, you know, and you start to perspire and your heart works faster and your immune system goes down. And of course, that response is good if, you know, 1,000 years ago you were trying to run for your life. The problem today is that it kicks in over and over and over. You know, you're late for school, or you're sitting in traffic, or some coworker says something about you, you get in a fight with your spouse. It gets hit over and over and over. And then stress is a precursor to many diseases and illnesses, which can cause very severe physical problems. The other reason that stress is not so great is because it's very hard to live your best self, to be the person, the happy, fulfilled person that you are meant to be, to contribute to the world and bring your gifts if you are stressed out. You know, you just can't do it. And I am a huge believer that everybody, you know, when they are really in that balanced, wonderful state, makes the world a better place. My website is called Meet the Self, because I believe that everyone's true self is here for a wonderful, amazing reason. If you are stressed, you cannot access that. So there are two reasons. One is a very physical, practical reason. We need to be healthy. And the other is perhaps a more life or spiritual reason. So when we meditate, to bring it back to meditation, there are many amazing studies that show you that meditation counters, I would say, all, but I need to have my research to really check, all of the mechanics of stress. And it doesn't mean that if you are really stressed and you meditate that you're immediately going to eradicate that, but it's by practicing it every day that you start to counter some of the effects of stress. And if you're not sure about what I say, there's an amazing new, very exciting scientific research that came out in the last year. It's actually got all, like Deepak Chopra and all the meditators, like really, really happy because they've been going for 20 years, meditate, meditate, meditate. And they're like, yeah, we know it lowers blood pressure, but, you know. They did this wonderful study at Boston, Mass General, and Harvard. And it was kind of interesting because it was a study done not by the TM organization, which has done a lot before. TM is a meditation organization, but by a nonpartisan group. And they took 20 people who had never meditated before. And that's important because, you know, when they do the studies on the Dalai Lama and his gang, like they've been meditating for 30 years. So their like brain waves are already way down there, right? So it's not quite as conducive to those of us that are in this North American world. So they did this study. They took 20 people who had never meditated before, and they had them practice meditation for about 20 minutes a day. And the meditation they practiced was a simple mindfulness on your breath meditation. And they did an MRI brain scan before and after the 8 weeks. And this was what was amazing. The follow-up brain scan, the one after the 8 weeks, showed that the area of your brain associated with stress, the amygdala, actually shrunk. within 8 weeks. And the area of your brain associated with memory and learning, the hippocampus, enlarged. It's also incidentally the area that has to do with sort of self-awareness. It's funny how they can pinpoint these areas of your brain. So the stress area shrunk, and then the other area actually got bigger. It was pretty amazing. And then there was a halo effect. It continued to shrink and grow. So they're seeing this happening in just regular people. And also what they're seeing in the studies is that they are really finding a proponent to actually help stave off Alzheimer's because of the memory areas. So it's now being, cited as a really big thing that should be done in our population to help stave off Alzheimer's. So it's amazing, what can happen. So that's just the main reason is stress. But of course, everybody who meditates might have different reasons. Some people might do it for pain relief. Some people might do it to enhance creativity, or if they're an athlete, to help their performance. I find in my own life that it helps a lot with relationships, because what it does is it teaches you to take that moment before you say something. The more and more you meditate, you will become more self-aware. It's used a lot in addictions, because when you meditate and you take that little gap, you always have a moment before you take a step. Instead of going on autopilot, you begin to take this tiny little step. And that's where you can decide, well, do I really want to eat all these chocolate chip cookies, Or maybe you have a moment where you've said something you didn't like, you notice it more because you become more and more self-aware. So that may not change everything overnight, but it starts to change your behavior over time. And of course, some people meditate because they do want to have a closer connection to the divine, to spirit. There are many, many reasons, It doesn't ultimately matter to me why anybody meditates, because there's a lot of different benefits. Whether they're like going through chemotherapy and they want their immune system, whether they're having a hard time in life and they just need that, because it does help you give a stronger sense of self. I can also share that for me, it helped me to make very difficult decisions in a very calm and mature way. So it's really quite an amazing thing. It's a technique that has aspects in all areas of your life. So I'm going to tell you now a little bit, and I know this is just an intro today, but I want to tell you about the different types of meditation. And I'll tell you about the type that I practice. So there are so many different types of meditation, like official meditation. Obviously, like swimming and knitting are also like that. But almost every culture in the world has had a form of meditation. You can have meditation where you're meditating dancing or to a drum in some Aboriginal societies. You can have Judaic societies would meditate by repeating the name of the divine. Christian had meditation. Obviously, the rosary is a form of meditation. Many of the saints were also very contemplative. Islam had meditation. The Sufis would twirl around and around and around. And then there's the Indian tradition coming out of yoga. There's the Chinese Tai Chi, Qigong martial arts. They're all forms of meditation. And in the West, most of you have probably heard of mindfulness, where you just think about your breath. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the type that I practice, mantra meditation, and then we'll have maybe a little meditation together at the end. So I practice mantra, and a mantra is a Sanskrit word, which is an Indian word, which really just means vehicle of the mind. And how it works, yeah, we'll be done in about 5. Thank you. So, a mantra sounds at first kind of fancy because it's this sort of Indian name. But I've done a lot of different types, and I find mantra meditation really practical, and I'll show you how. What it is you repeating a word over and over and over again. And let's just say that the word is soham, and that's just the sound of your breath. In is so, hum is out, okay? It has no meaning. So I'm not repeating like somebody's name, so I'm not going to start thinking about their name. I'm just merely repeating a meaningless sound. And here's why I find that it's really helpful. Because if you tell someone to sit and close their eyes and meditate, you know, a lot of people think that you're supposed to have no thoughts. Well, first of all, that is really hard. You ever try to sit and go, I'm not going to have any thoughts? I'm not, oh yeah, well, because you know what, did I remember to do that and that email? And then you start going, oh, I'm not supposed to have, I'm doing this terrible, I suck at meditation, I don't want to do it, right? It's very non-practical. If you have a mantra, it's a way of focusing your mind, so you repeat it. So you go like this, you might practice, so hum, so hum, so hum, so hum, so hum, I wonder what time it is this like, so, you know, and oh, my shoes kind of, why did I wear these shoes today? And, oh, I'm having a thought. So hum, so hum, so hum, and you go back. So it's helping to focus you. Eventually, what your meditation may look like is a series of so hum, so hum, so hum, thought, 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 no wait, so hum, mantra, 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 thought, 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 mantra, 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 and then for a few seconds, you don't think anything and you slip into the gap. You slip into that place of timelessness. And then you're like, wow, wasn't that cool? Oh, I'm having a thought again. And you go back. But it helps to ground you. Because we don't think, in the meditation that I practice, we don't say, oh, don't have thoughts. Thoughts are not bad. You have a thought, you think, okay, when you notice you have a thought, you go back to your technique, to your practice. But you don't beat yourself up for it. And it's a way of helping you to get to that place. Just like the twirling is for the Sufis and repeating the name of the divine is, it's a very, for me, I find very effective technique. And usually when you practice it, everyone gets their own individual mantra based on the year they were born. Surprisingly enough, it's so easy that I teach 4- and 5-year-olds. I teach little kids how to practice mantra meditation in kindergarten and daycares. And I was amazed, because at first I thought, this is crazy, why are they asking me to do this? And like, the 3rd week, they're all sitting there like British royalty, so you know? They really got it, because the technique is easy. Now, is meditation easy? Well, yes and no. It's easy to do, but you have to change and make time to do it. You have to say, I'm going to do it for those 15 minutes. But at the same time, we never beat ourselves up if we miss it, you know? Because beating ourselves up never helps with anything. So, I think I've been given the time. So what I would say is that if people have some more questions, they can maybe just meet me outside in a minute. And maybe we'll just close with a little meditation. I'd also let you know that I am teaching an upcoming full meditation workshop, which is accredited with the Chopra Center. It's about 8 hours. It's usually over like 2 Sundays, in which you would get your own mantra and learn much more in depth about meditation. And it's also really wonderful to practice as a group together, because there's something about meditating in a group that just raises the energy. You know, 3 people, it's like 9 people as opposed to 1. And also when you do things as a group, then you all have to show up, right? And it makes you do your practice. The only hard thing about meditation is just making the time. But the more you make the time, the more energy you have. So if I skip a meditation because I'm tired, I'm more tired the rest of the day than if I had taken those, even if I just had 12 minutes. And I think we all sort of know that. Who knows why as humans we sometimes have trouble with discipline. But we just have to always cut ourselves some slack and be good to ourselves. And just know that every time you practice, each time you meditate, it's like dipping yourself, you know, into the well. A little bit of it stays. Always, each time you drop down, some of it may fall off. There's always a bit that stays. So you're always a little bit further ahead. Okay, so I want to thank all of you for being with me. And if you would like to just meditate for a few minutes, I will just take you through a very easy breath meditation, nothing fancy. Again, don't worry if you have a thought. I'll take you through what's called a guided meditation, which is when someone just talks. It's not quite as deep as regular, but it's relaxing, and it will help you just relax. I'm going to take off my shoes, because I don't like to meditate with shoes. So if you just want to sit back, maybe make sure that you're not slumped. It's okay if your back is against the chair, though, for a bit of support, but try to feel yourself be up. If you can put both feet on the floor, that's a little better. And you may find it's more comfortable to close your eyes because we want to take our awareness inward. That's it. And you can listen to my voice, but don't feel too attached to it, to what I say. So don't worry if you drift off. You'll come back. Let's take a nice inhale through our nose. And out through our nose. Very good. We're just going to breathe easily. Just focusing on your breath. Inhale. And exhale. As you begin to breathe, slow down the space in between your breaths. So you have an inhale, pause, exhale, and pause. Just like pressing pause on the DVD player, the CD player. You're allowing a bit of space to go between your breath. And again, if a thought comes, just let it fall off you like water. Brush it away. Just go, oh, I've had a thought, and let it go. And I continue to inhale, pause, exhale, pause. Take your attention to your hands for a moment. Feel your hands if they're on your thighs. Feel the weight of them on your thighs. And then imagine that the middle of your hands are getting very hot. Feel heat in your hands. You're probably feeling more and more energy as your hands get a little more and more tingly. Continue to breathe in and out, and aware gentle energy in your hands, a warmth. Continue to breathe. And now you can just release your attention from your hands. Release, focusing on your breath. And just sit easily for a moment. With your eyes closed. Not trying to meditate or do anything. Just sit for a moment. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. How does everyone feel? Good. All right, well, namaste. Thank you for being with me. And I will, if you would like me to send you information about the full course, I will just get a pen and get someone's email and phone number. And again, if you want to talk or have any questions, can just meet you outside the room here. Thank you so